So, welcome back, y'all, to the South, Florida in the winter in specific. Finally, not a cold day. Yeah, I know we whine down here. It gets down to 46 at night and we whine, it's cold. I know what y'all deal up north is a lot worse. That's why I'm not there anymore. But anyway, we got ourselves a little issue. It's been going on for a while. What do we have? We got a 1978 Toyota pickup truck, long bed, 20R motor, engine, carbureted. And in the past, I've had throttle issues with this thing. Erratic throttle, irregular idle, bad idle quality, etc., etc. I have done a lot of work on it. Now, before I get any further, I want to warn everybody up front. I tend to be very thorough and very complete in my videos. I give a lot of information, a lot of research information, and a lot of background information. If you don't need this, you don't want to hear it, and you just want to see what I'm doing about a repair or an attempt to repair, you have fast forward controls on YouTube. Please use them. Please do not write me in the comments, your video is too long, you talk too much. But look, it's in your control, okay? You can look at what you want. You decide what's good for you. I'm putting it out there for anybody that wants it, and I just want to be as complete as possible. Nothing's worse, in my opinion, than having somebody leaving out bits of information that you might need. So, now that you know that, onwards. This is a 78. As you can see, back there's a rod system that operates the throttle that connects to the gas pedal inside. I'll show you in a second. In about 80 or 81, I think 81 when they switched to the 22R, Toyota started going with a simpler, less parts, more reliable throttle cable system. They got rid of all the rods entirely out here. Less stuff to wear out, break down, all that stuff. Okay, I had to fabricate parts of this just to make it work. Threaded rod, ball end joints, nylock nuts to make sure they stay put, etc., etc., etc. It's not a bad system. A lot of hot rodders still use them. But see, that's just so it can pivot and move around. Here's the issue, is this hinge here. Because it's supposed to pivot and move in case the engine moves or the body flexes. So, let's go to the beginning. In the cab, by the gas pedal, which I do not have anymore, because the floor rusted where it's attached. Hopefully you can see this. As you can see is a rod. Gas pedal presses on this rod and pitches this. It's got a pivot back here and it shoves that rod going up. Okay? This rod had grooves worn in it from where it was riding in that steel bracket. So I had to take all that apart and weld up the grooves and grind and sand it back down. It took about an hour. Nice and smooth, and get it back to the original diameter. The holes in the bracket were fine. They were exactly round. For some reason the rod wore and the bracket didn't. So I did all that and it got better. Idle quality got better. It was more reliable, but it still wasn't right. Okay, let's go back out here. So, when it shoves that rod up, it pulls this little bell crank here. Okay, and pulls this back, which pulls this rod back, which pulls this bell crank back. And that works the carb. Alright. Now, since I replaced all those are fresh ball joint ends. There's no play in them. They're in spec. They're not worn. The last piece I've got that might be worn is this hinge. Now, what's supposed to happen here, let's see if I can get in here. See how it's on the carb. Okay, and it turns away from you. And there's a return spring on there. It's a funky setup, I tell you. What I think is happening is, again, I thought the rod, the pin, the holes in that stamped steel piece right there were worn and was allowing that rod to flop around. It was causing some wear and flop and binding up this part here. As you can see, it's got some play in it. That's almost a 1/16 of an inch. See back here? Okay, and I think because sometimes it instead of being in its normal position, it's dropping down and binding this up and changing the position of the throttle plates in the bottom of the carb. Now, what's the symptoms on that? Cold starts, no symptom. You wouldn't even know it. When it's hot, I shut it down, I run to the convenience store to get me a slushie. Come back out in 5 minutes. It should be in tune, everything should be right. You should just turn the key, it should go da-da-da-boom and start right up. Sometimes it'll just crank and crank and crank and refuse to start. Sometimes it'll crank for 2 seconds or so, and then it'll blow a big plume of gas back out through the carb. And I got big gray smoke coming out from under the hood. Once that happens, I cycle the key off, cycle the key back on, turn the key and start it, and it starts normally. Maybe that poof jowl that I don't know. But I still think that's the issue. Yeah, we got some little leaking going on here. Gotta tighten those base nuts. But anyway, you look right there, you can see it. You can hear it. Now, I thought I was going to do the same repair on this that I did with the rod in the cab, which was take it out of here, take it apart, pull the rod out, weld the rod, grind it down, get it all nice and smooth, put it back together. Turns out that's not the case. I don't know if you can see this. I doubt it. But this thing's got bushings in it. So get out of the sun. Here we go. There's bushings around that rod. And I think it's the bushings that are worn. So I got to thinking about this. I got some calipers out and I measured that rod, that pin. It's 8 millimeter. That sparked something off in my brain. Back around here, you got your door hinges. Okay? That pin is 8 millimeter. Top one and the bottom one. And there are bushings in there. They should be bronze. Because bronze is like self-lubricating. You don't need to lubricate them. Could be brass. Doubt it. Should be the same thing on the passenger door. But knowing Toyota as I do by now, after working with this truck for years, researching, understanding their history and how they think, that's an 8 millimeter pin. Up there's an 8 millimeter pin. It's probably the same bushing. So, and considering bronze is a lot softer than steel, it's probably the bushings that are worn that's causing that. Makes sense. So, what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the carb from this. We get these 2 bolts out of here that have some rubber washers on them that hold it to the firewall, and get this hinge out of here. Once it's out of here, I'm going to test the wobble on it again. I'll bet you it'll be bigger. And we're going to attempt to take this apart. Now, I don't know if you can see this. There's all the grease I have in here trying to make it work better. This is just sheet steel rolled around, and it's peened back here to hold the pin in. Here, on the back side, and on the bottom one. Should be able to use an air tool to just undo that peen on that one end, and then put a nail or something or a punch and drive that pin out of there and get this thing apart, this piece from that piece. And then I can look at everything in here and see what's going on. So that's the plan. That's what I'm going to do. I may not be able to show you the entire process because it's going to make this video way too long. But when I get down to some pieces and parts and I find something for sure, I will show it to you and see what's going on with that. So stand by. So here we are again in our high-tech YouTube video studio, which is, of course, the trash can. And we got the hinge out, and we got it cleaned up some, so we can have a better look at it. Now, let's see what we can see. Hear that? Okay. You can see down there, there's something going on the outside of that pin, which has to be a bushing. Look up here, there's a flange, and again, it looks like a bronze or a brass bushing. Sorry for the shaking. Coffee's still running. And there's a flange going in that way. Looks like that one's flanged from the bottom. And it looks like there's a wave washer under that flange holding that up. So look at this. There's up and down movement as well, which means over time I think these flanges have gotten worn down. Now, here's the door hinge pin and the two bushings. Got these out of Taiwan, but through a U.S. supplier, so they got here in like 3 days. 20 bucks for a full set if you want to redo your doors. Good deal. Let's see if we can do this side by side. There you go. Yeah, see, that flange looks about the same thickness as that. And this one absolutely does not. Looks like it's worn. Okay. Looks like a regular washer in there. I don't know what that is. But now you can see the pins, like I was telling you about. It's peened on both ends. I just need to unpeen one. I'm going to use an air tool for that. It's just the easiest way to do it. Straighten it up so that pin can slide out. And I'll pound it out from the other side with a handy dandy punch tool. Which should fit in there nicely. And if I get, once I drive that pin out and pull it out of there, these two pieces should come apart. And then I'll get to have a look at a little careful look at what's in here and how they're stacked. I assume that wave washer is to keep pressure on this. But wow. Yeah. Look at that. It's about 1/32 of an inch. Yeah, that could do it. That groove I filled in that rod at the gas pedal, it was about 1/32 of an inch. So you start adding those two up, and you got a 2/32, which is a 1/16 of an inch. And then you put the slop and the balls in there. If you had another 1/16, well, that's 2/16. Well, that's an 1/8. And an 1/8 is a lot of room when it comes to things like this. So we're going to get this apart, see what's going on. Okay, so I got that apart. Didn't end up needing the air tool itself, but I did use a couple of the punches that came with my air tool set. That worked out pretty good. I was able to just bend that one out of the way. And that pin just slid on out because there's no resistance on these bushings in here. Didn't even have to drive it out. Now let's take this out here. Let's see what we got. You know what? These look like they might be nylon. Look at that cut there. There's no cut in that one, but there's a cut in that one. Interesting. They're not very deep. They don't feel like metal. They don't sound like metal. Of course, you're never going to find that part as a replacement part. Let's go look at this side by side. Let's grab these. Bring them up here. Yeah, they're a lot deeper. But But that actually wouldn't be a hindrance at all. It's just going to make it more stable in the vertical. For nylon, that would explain a lot. I don't know what you see, but that center looks a little out of round to me. Looks like it's a little thinner on one side than another. But anyway, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And here, let me show you this. Here's the pin. It doesn't have any grooves in it. I can't feel anything with a fingernail. I'm going to clean all this up with a wire wheel. Get all nice and clean. But put it in here. I don't know if you can see this. Look at this. If I hold that bushing in place, it's got some wobble. Put it in the center where there's shouldn't be anywhere at all. It's got wobble. I'll try the other side. Yeah, look at that. That's got to be it. So, I'm going to get the old bench grinder with the wire wheel out of here and clean these pieces up. Stick some steel wool and a screwdriver down there and get that all cleaned up so there's nothing, no grit or rust or that ball to bind on. I'm going to clean that ball and that arm on the carb as well, just so everything's nice and smooth. I'll put this back together. I'll put a little dab of grease in here, just so it's got, you know, a nice smooth movement. So I'm going to get on that. So I got those pulled out of there. Yeah, about almost 3 times deeper, but that doesn't bother me. And yeah, these are nylon, believe it or not. Amazing they lasted this long. 44 years? Okay. But I cleaned up the pin and I test fitted it. There we go. Yeah, let's see. There's no give there. That's just my fingers wobbling. It's smooth. And again, I don't really mind that they're a lot longer, because that's going to be more stable in the vertical and not allow it to wobble so much if we get wear at all. This could last another 50 years. So here we are. Nylon. Oh yeah. A couple of hints. I had to take a big screwdriver. Actually got a bigger one somewhere. Anyway. And ream out the holes in these ears first before putting the bushings in, because they were kind of tight. But, you know, just ream out a little bit, take out maybe 1/1000. You get a nice press fit. They went in pretty easy with the vise. Got them in flush. No problem. Another tip. Your pin, remember how that looked? Yeah, I need to get the burrs off the ends of this, because I was putting it through there and dry test fitting it. So I can show you. Oh, not that end. There we go. And it wasn't wanting to go through. It was actually binding up. Still wants to bind up on that one. I think there's a burr on the end of that, but as long as I've got one free and it pivots free and easy on the pin, I'm good. But yeah, bench grinder, wire wheel on the bench grinder helps a lot. Get the burrs off of there, make it a lot easier for you. Another thing, there are 3 washers on this that fit around the pin. There's 2 on the bottom. So in other words, This is bolted to the firewall, and the cup is out on the arm. There's going to be 2 washers down on this end and 1 up top. Somehow I missed one. There we go, that's a lot better. Cleaned up all 3 washers, front and back. Cleaned up this socket, and I buffed up the flanges on the bearing, the bushings. So, good to go. And there it is, rebuilt and reinstalled. Looking pretty good. It's nice and tight. It's a lot tighter than it used to be. But it still hinges freely, which is the point. Don't see any interference going on. All looks good. Now I got to do some testing and reset the carburetor idle speeds high and low. I'll give you a report on that. So, what a day. Went out and did a little running around, did some hot starts on it. Looks like the problem is fixed. Did 3 hot starts on it. Don't touch the pedal, turn the key, starts right up in a second, goes right to idle. And the idle's a lot quieter and smoother than it used to be. What I have to do now is when I got started again, I was going to reset the high idle and the low idle and tune the mixture. Made a little bit of a mistake and it was stuck on high idle. Oh boy. I hate it when you put things back wrong. But got that fixed, but then it's warmed up, so I set the low idle. I've got about 850, 900 RPM, and it's really smooth. It's really quiet. Backed out the mixture about a half a turn. Power seems good. No lag, no stumble, no problem. So I think that's fixed. And I even got the windshield wipers fixed today, which have been broken forever. There's a vent hole on the other side, on the corner over there, and mice were getting in there, and they were packing under the dash there with a bunch of nesting material and grass and weeds and stuff. And it got wrapped around the wipers one time when I turned them on, and it popped that arm off of the wiper motor. Whew. So I had to clear all that stuff out. Had a hell of a time finding a bushing that was going to work. Finally found one, ruined another one. Finally got one in that wasn't ruined, that stayed in place. Put it in, test it, turn them on. Wipers go over once, and the thing pops off and they stay there. 5 times that happened. So I've been thinking about it for a while, and I figured, well, the wiper arm got bent. And it's not square to the ball. It's like this. So when it goes over like this on that last push, it just pops out. So when I was in there, 5 bolts, take the wiper motor out, pull the arm forward, bend it back the way I think it needs to go to, pop it back on the ball, put the bolts back in. Works fine. Got wipers again. Now I can actually drive in the rain. Not that I want to. But there you go. Got some tests done. A little bit more to do, fine tuning. Probably no big deal. Hope this was informative, if not interesting. But again, it's just one of those rare things that it pops up on these models. Somebody may be experiencing it, maybe not, but hey, I want to put it out there just in case anybody is, if they're having the same problems with idle quality and with it's up, it's down, it's all over the place. Well, it's those rods. Just check it out. Any questions about what I did? I know I didn't show everything in complete detail, but I explained it as best I could. But if you got questions, anytime, just comment down below. I will respond to anything you ask. Not a problem. These videos are up here to help people. That's my only purpose. So once again, thanks all for watching. Thanks all to all my subscribers out there. I love y'all. I really appreciate that you subscribe and stay subscribed. Thank you very much. Any questions about the 78 Toyota in general, 75 to 78? Let me know. I got knowledge. Thanks again for watching. See y'all later.